Good evening. It is Monday, the 23rd of January, 2023. It is almost 8:30 UK time. And this is episode 28 of Part of My Journey. This is my mental health talk show. We talk to DJs and some other people as well, generally about musical influences, DJing, 45s, but also an impact on sort of mental health and everything that goes with that. And I've got a very special guest today, Richio Suzuki. He's been DJing for many, many, many years, has had residencies all over the place, played loads of festivals all around the world, got lots of stories and insights to talk about today. So here he is. How you doing?
Hello. I'm not
Great.
in the crib tonight, I'm afraid. I'm at my friend's house. Better Wi-Fi connection.
That's good. But
Like,
thank you first of all so much for coming on the show. You know, it's a
thanks
pleasure
for the
to have
invite.
you on. I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about.
I have
We'll,
to admit, I didn't really bother with Twitch when it kicked off in COVID. I
okay.
bounced at Andy Smith a few times
Yep.
and watched a few things, but I never get overly involved, so I haven't got a Twitch following, I'm afraid.
That's okay. Don't worry. Yeah, Andy's obviously a big DJ. He's done some events for us, and I think he did a 45 day this year, and he's on quite a lot last year. And yeah, he's a great DJ. He's a great part of
Yeah,
the
good
community.
friend. He likes to keep active.
He certainly does. He's well. I don't know who's busier. You both seem to be very busy at the moment, which is a really good thing, bearing in mind the sort of couple of years with the pandemic. I always try and take my guests right to the beginning because I'm always interested in how people got their passion for music because it is a real passion. So, as far as you were concerned, you know, from a young age, when was the sort of first insight into sort of getting into music, and was it friends, family, parents? Who was it who first got you into music?
Well, going right to the beginning, I had a box of 45s from my auntie and uncle of rock and roll and stuff, and I just lined them up on a portable player. The drop down one by one,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
shadows. But I wasn't, overly keen on it. But it's all I had at the time. Um, but I grew up in the north of England, so at the right time for Northern Soul, really.
Yeah.
Uh, so when I was 12, that was what was being, we were selling records in the playground.
Oh
Um,
wow.
um, and going to soul nights. I mean, you could start really young because there wasn't really any alcohol, so you were allowed to go at age 15 to this party which started at midnight. Um,
Wow, that's
but we had
interesting.
some like youth club kind of things in the beginning, age 12, 13.
Yeah.
So I was into this soul music very early and going to all nighters in Cleethorpes and stuff by the age of sort of 14, 15.
And at
Um,
this stage, were you said about sort of selling records in the sort of playground? First of all, I'm interested in what sort of how much were they worth then? You know, what were they sort of being exchanged for?
I've still got records with the prices on, yeah, like
All
30
right,
pence,
30
70.
pence. Okay, wow.
We'd all buy them on these, like a list. You could get a list from a record shop
Right.
somewhere, and then you'd order them by mail order. And then if you didn't like them, then you could sell them to your friends. Uh,
Ah, interesting. Yeah. Okay. So that's cool. And these parties that you're going to, were you going simply as a punter? Well, not a punter, but were you going simply to sort of enjoy the music, or did you start DJing at an early age as well?
no, no, I wasn't DJing then. No, I was just going to dance. I mean, yeah, dancing was a big part of it for me.
Yeah.
Because after Northern Soul, I moved to Middlesbrough, further up north, and then that's when kind of breakdancing kicked off, and I got into that a bit. And I actually bought some, the foul all-in-one, wedding kind of DJ deck thing, which was totally useless when
Right.
it came to scratching and stuff. But at least I had
Yeah.
some. Um, and I kept an interest in the Northern Soul as well. But I was always embracing whatever was new.
Yeah.
Um, so we had house music in the North England before London. It's kind of facts that Manchester, the Hacienda, and Middlesbrough, the area, we had the house music DJs and live acts kind of before London bothered with them. So we had all day events where there was sort of jazz, funk, soul, and house all in one day, and then obviously the more it went on, more house started taking over. But it was a Sunday and a Monday in the northeast, so you weren't
Right.
mixing with the normal people. It was still a separate thing, you know.
In terms of what? In terms of the people coming to the shows, do you mean?
Yeah, what it was
I suppose
Friday and
Mondays
Saturday.
people would be at work, wouldn't they? So they're not going to be out
No, we
partying.
had nights on Sunday.
Yeah.
Started by the boss's Southport Weekender. Before Southport Weekender, he had a Sunday night, which people came
Right.
from Leeds, Bradford, Newcastle, all over. They travelled to go to this night, you know, which was like 7 till midnight. And then there was another one on a Monday, a really rough area in Middlesbrough, South Bank.
Right.
And people travelled, so it was all the music heads coming together, and you know, way before normal people got into dance music as such, you know. So you didn't
And
have to, you know, because it's pretty rough. You know, it's pretty rough up there on a weekend. You didn't really want to be going out on a Saturday night trying to find decent music. You're better off going on a Sunday or Monday. Um,
right. Okay. That's
so,
interesting. Yeah. That's an
so that
interesting.
was the big thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the DJ Alex Lowe's, who was the DJ at the Sunday, he started to organise Southport Weekend. It was in 3 other places before Southport. It was in Berwick, on the border of Scotland.
Yep.
It was in Blackpool and Fleetwood. Um, before it went to Southport and stayed there for I'm not sure how long, 20 years or something. Then it went to Minehead. Now it's in Bognor.
Yep. it's
So
it's
it's a
it's a
brand new.
long-standing festival, though, isn't it? I mean, it
They
gets
had
big, gets bigger and bigger, doesn't it?
they've been doing a London one-day thing as well, which was called Southport Weekend One-Day Festival, but it was just too confusing. So they've given it a
Yeah.
name. Beautiful people now. I
Nice.
think that works better to avoid the confusion of what it is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've got one in Croatia as well, Sunsea Beat, which is going similar kind of lineup. It's very house music based now. You know, when it started, it had a
Yeah.
jazz room, and my mate Simon, Mr. Jazz, he ran the jazz room, and I helped with that. And then, you know, they had Northern Soul, and before it got more housey. But when it went very housey, then they had a separate room for sort of the techno and stuff, and that was my room. So I was
Right.
basically given a room and helped. You know, I had a say in who played and stuff. So we had Nightmares on Wax, Cal Cox, Unique Three, um, Graham Part from the Happy Ender. All these people were in my room, um, which was, you know,
Amazing. Yeah.
1989. So I mean, you know, people take it for granted now, you know, house music. But when it first started, you know, very exciting time, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I
Yeah.
think what interests me as well, obviously, this is happening on a Sunday to Monday, and this is obviously a long time ago now. Obviously, there was no internet, no mobile phones and that. So how at that stage were you getting the word around about these parties? You know, how were people finding out about them? Was it just word of mouth, or?
There was a few magazines which were more for like the Black Echoes and I can't remember the other one now. So you find out about some nights in magazines, but
Yeah,
generally it was a local area thing. People would
right.
be giving out flyers one night, ready for the next night.
Yeah,
Uh, you know, so yeah, it was word of mouth as well. We'd have minibuses and sometimes coaches going to other towns. You know, organised by maybe one of the DJs to bring his own crowd,
yeah,
and there'd be
yeah.
all
Because
players in Sheffield and various other places,
yeah,
Nottingham. Um,
because like you say again, we take it for granted now that anyone can look up anything on the internet and find out what's going on everywhere. But then you had to do a lot more searching out to find the music and obviously the underground music that was going on back then.
yeah.
Very, very different times. So when did you get into DJing? Obviously, you're still going to these parties, but when did you first sort of
Um,
decide, you were going to do some DJing?
I had some Northern Soul records, and I was asked to DJ, but I said no at the time.
Right,
Uh, then, by the age of about 18, 19, then I started to help my friend Simon in his jazz room, and he just gave me a box of records and said, "Oh, I'm going to London. Can you do the gig for me?" So I
right,
did a gig
okay,
with somebody else's records, you know, which was a bit weird.
yeah.
Um, but played it. Um, so I did a few sort of jazz room gigs. Um,
Did you have your own setup at home at this stage? Had you sort of mastered the techniques of DJing, or was this all still pretty new?
it's still fairly new, yeah. I think I had those wedding DJ all in one,
Yeah,
system at the time. I didn't get Technics. Yeah, I don't know, around that time, I guess. Yeah, I think I had one. I think I bought one Technics and then one other deck for quite a
Yeah.
while, and then I found Technics in Music Exchange record shop.
Right.
So I ran home, got a pile of records, and sold records to buy a deck.
Amazing, amazing. And I guess it's sort of gone from there, really, hasn't it? So obviously you're doing your friend Simon's jazz room. Did there come a point where you sort of started doing and getting booked for other gigs?
Yeah, by then I'd sort of got into house, and so I was officially a house DJ. But my first night in
Right.
London on my own was it was house, funk, soul in one night. Yeah, um, in Covent Garden somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, I moved to London age 21, so by then, Time Out magazine was just a bible to go out. So
Right.
I'd
Yeah.
just go to whatever looked like the good night, and yeah, that was around the time of the trip at the Astoria and Spectrum, Danny Ramplin, Shoom, Danny Ramplin, Spectrum at the on Monday night was Heaven was a big night,
Yeah.
a house night at Heaven, and then there was Fabio and Groove Rider on a Thursday, and
Yeah.
then the WAG club you could always go to, any night of the week. It'd be decent. Um,
It was a very, very interesting time, wasn't it? Lots of venues and lots of music, lots of breaking music coming through, wasn't it, at that time?
yeah, and then you had the TV show as well, Solid Soul, which was Soul Train UK.
Yeah.
So you'd have all the bands doing live on there, and then they would do like a tour. Like Loose Ends would come to Middlesbrough, Manchester, and do their new song, and then one or two other songs. It's called a PA.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing, seeing the live acts. Joyce Sims, Loose Ends, and some of the Americans as well would come over to do UK Soul Train and then do a few gigs.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow. Wow. So yeah, that's a great time. And obviously, that sort of carried on. Then you just haven't really stopped DJing, have you? It's just sort of gone all the way through.
I
And
had a
then
day job as a chef, and at one time I was doing like Ministry of Sound 6 hour set on my own, and then other
right,
club. This was kind of the mid early 90s. I did Club UK, which was a big house club. But I kept on doing my day job, even though I was getting 500 quid or whatever, because
right,
I had accommodation with my job as a chef, living job. I had this 1 bedroom flat, so I had cheap
right.
accommodation. And my wife was working I met her there. She's Japanese, and she was working at Louis Vuitton. So we had a nice life, With I didn't need to stop doing the day job. But then when we had a baby, I said to her, "You go back to work, and I'll be a house husband slash
Right.
DJ."
Okay. All right.
Uh, Thinking that would be easy.
Yeah.
As you know, by the sounds of it, you've just been checking on your child.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
not as easy as you think it is going to be.
no. Um, so yeah, we just had the one child because I realised how difficult it was. And yeah, I carried on through his whole life being the main, the stay-at-home parent. But
Right.
I had a shop in Camden as well, so I had Camden at the weekends selling clothes. Because fashion and music for me has always been together.
Yeah. 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 I've seen a lot of your posts and obviously a lot of really cool clothes. And it sort of goes well together. And I suppose being in the scene as well, it's important to sort of stay up with the fashion, and be into sort of labels.
Yeah, I just think it goes hand in hand. You don't want to. I know some people just wear the same clothes all the time and look okay, but
Yeah.
for me, it's a journey through fashion and music and dance. It's all combined.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
definitely, definitely. I'm going to say hello to a couple of people. We got T2 Funk in the house. We got DJ Yamix, and we got Mixter Hoffman.
these
So
regular people, are they?
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're sort of regular streamers. DJ Yamix is surely going to be streaming, but the others are regular streamers. But yeah, no, it's great to have you all in. Thank you. Okay, so obviously you have your son, and we'll talk a little bit more about your son later because he's sort of featuring at the moment because he's over here, isn't he, from Japan? But let's talk about Southport Weekend a little bit more. So how did you obviously were running one of the rooms, and did that just get bigger and bigger each year? Um,
No, actually, what happened? The main room got bigger and bigger for house music, and therefore, at the time it was not. It wasn't just house in the main room. So
yeah.
once the house went all in the main room, then they stopped my second room. Because
Oh,
they didn't
right.
have 2 rooms of house. Um,
Okay.
so like one time, they put on Tim Westwood or whatever. I think I had a Friday and then he had a Saturday, something like that.
Right. Yeah.
I actually came on after him. The DJ who didn't want to come on after Tim Westwood. Uh,
Okay.
oh, do you want my set at 3 in the morning after Tim Westwood? Like, yeah, great. Not thinking about the fact that the room would be 500 people listening to hip hop and house music with me. I think I had the Wheels of Steel with me because we had a warm up party the night before. So I put on
Right.
Wheels of Steel, and the room evacuated within 5 minutes. The whole room just left. Um, and I couldn't even find Tim Westwood actually because he had the lights. He'd always say, "Kill the lights, kill the lights," and he wasn't on the stage either. So I
Right.
was
Okay.
on stage searching for the DJ where I was the night before, and then I realised he was at the back of the room next to the sound guy with all the lights off.
Right. Okay.
So I found him, and yeah, I cleared the room. But eventually, I got some people back in the room,
Yeah.
and this guy who booked me to play in Liverpool, who turned out to be a gangster and went to prison for murder, but he booked me to play
Right.
Liverpool on Boxing Day, and I did the gig, got paid, and then somebody said to me, "Oh, how was that gig in Liverpool? Do you know the guy who booked you? He's in prison now for murder." I was like, "Oh, no."
Right.
So that was a bit worrying at the time, but yeah, I escaped
Crazy.
being
Yeah.
murdered
Yeah.
and got paid still.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the main thing, isn't it?
I'm not
But
a great driver, and I borrowed this car and we drove to Middlesbrough and then Liverpool in the snow of Christmas or whatever. It was pretty treacherous journey to get to this gig.
yeah.
You,
Yeah. Yeah.
you do these things in those days.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess it was very, very different times, and things are different now. But that's obviously progressed, and you've been doing regular gigs and quite a lot of residencies, pretty
I
much,
actually I
throughout the
actually
UK.
quit the weekender. I kind of decided to stop doing it because I was so busy in London. I was doing lots of second rooms,
Right.
like Richio Sound and loads of glam parties and celebrity things, and it was really taking off. And so I just decided to stop doing the weekender. I did go back later and help my friend Simon playing jazz funk and stuff. After a
Yeah.
break, 5, 10 years, whatever. And then I went back last year in Wagner and I said to the boss, "I've got my USB sticks with me if you need a DJ." And then I went over to him. I said, the sound guy had started playing terrible music. The room was open, on
Right.
the Friday afternoon. And he said, "Yes, please go and DJ now." So I ended up going.
Fantastic.
I just saw a
Fan-
picture today, actually, just on Instagram, as someone took a picture of me that day.
yeah.
See, I was only playing to people arriving. It was still worth doing. To get my foot back in the door.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's definitely every opportunity to DJ is definitely one you need to sort of take, isn't it? And go from there. You talk about celebrity parties. People obviously have an idea of what they're like. Are they as cool as people think?
No,
Or I was going to say, and the music, are they sort of into the music, or not really?
well, what it came from sort of DJing in hotel bars,
Yeah.
and there'd be the Spice Girls there or whatever. I have one story actually. There was um, Marilyn Manson with Dita Von Teese, his wife, and she came
Right.
over and said, "Oh, if you don't stop playing this shit disco music, Marilyn Manson's going to leave the bar." And well, that to my left is Samuel L. Jackson.
Right.
To, to his next to him is on another table is Janet Jackson.
Right.
Then look,
Okay.
Alan wants to go to bed, then and I can live with that.
Yeah.
um, because there were legends in the room. But yeah,
Uh,
I get booked. Not that often, but yeah, I get booked to do sort of fashion parties and
yeah.
call them celebrity parties. But you only needed a handful of celebrities in there to get that name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's an
Oh
interesting comment though, because I think even most DJs in their career have had someone come up, whether it's a bar gig or a pub gig or a proper gig, and said, if you don't play something else, we're going to leave now, or if you don't do such and such, So it's
Yeah.
interesting that even the celebrities sort of come out with those sort of lines. That's a
Yeah.
great, that's a great story. That's a great story.
The rule was you don't play their music. You never play the
Yeah,
music of the people but they'd
yeah,
sometimes send somebody over to try and make you play it, but but
yeah. That's an interesting because I guess if you've got an artist or a performer in there, well, I suppose they probably don't want to hear their music. I don't know. Some maybe do, but I guess that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, that does make sense, doesn't it? But yeah, so that's cool. Hello, Double
I
P,
got
and
quite friendly
hello.
for 2 years with Danny Minogue, and
Yeah.
she didn't know I was a Kylie fan when I met her, but
Okay.
I, I calmed down my Kylie obsession and became mates with Danny. So I DJ'd Danny's birthday and met Kylie and stuff, and she brought Danny brought Kylie to a bar I was at. And I just made a mashup actually. On the B side was Kylie on top of Crazy Town. Do you remember that Butterfly?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's like crazy. It was a mashup on the, and I played it to her. And she said, "Yeah, yeah, that's great." Yeah, she wasn't angry or anything.
No, no, that's cool. That's all cool. And talking about sort of making music, you've done stuff on Mellow Mellow label, is that right? Is that your label, or is
Might
that something
be.
you've got? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean it's finished now anyway. But yeah, I did. I did two. I did a mashup of Run DMC with the Clash
yeah,
Jam Master Jay died, and then I did a Let Me Clear My Seven Nation Army. Let Me Clear
yeah,
My Throat that was massive actually. That was the one with Kylie on the B side and Soul to Soul back to Marvin Gaye. So three very different tracks, and yeah, that did really well because in the 90s, when was it? 90s, 2000, whatever. Mashups were massive. So
yeah, yeah.
um,
Oh
actually, the
yeah.
first time I met Andy Smith, I was at Keb Darge's, Madame Jojo's, and he said, "Oh, you made that Let Me Clear My Throat. That was my biggest record in Australia." Well,
That's
but
the first time you met Andy.
sorry,
That was the first time you met Andy, was it? You
yeah, I
said.
was friends
Yeah,
with Keb, and
yeah,
he decides to play with Keb every Saturday night,
yeah,
funk and Northern Soul and stuff. So my Hawaiian Bop night actually came from Andy and Kev and me wearing Hawaiian shirts. That's all it was based around.
right.
I started this night in the 50s and 60s, and I only knew about Northern Soul and Latin and stuff. I didn't really know anything about rock and roll. So I had a girl from Japan who was joined she came back to London, and she knew all the rocking stuff, so she sort of taught me a bit. Then I met this 19-year-old girl on the dance floor. I said, "Do you want to be a DJ?" Because the Japanese girl was quitting. She looked the part. She knew the music,
Yeah,
so she gave me the records. I bought them, and so she taught me, about the right music to play for the '50s stuff. And she became one of the DJs, and then she had her own nights after. I mean, I've helped a lot of people over the years. They helped me as well in other ways. Um,
yeah.
I'm
It's
always,
it's part of building a community, isn't it? It's certainly something that we've done over the last couple of years through what we're doing online and through 45 Kings Collective. But it sounds like obviously you're doing it in real life with meeting other DJs and connecting and building. Community is so important in music, I think.
yeah. I mean, I've helped a lot of girls and a lot of young guys as well. Some of them they drift off, they don't stick with it. I
Yeah,
mean, Andy's son, he was into DJing for a while, just the '50s stuff, and yeah, he's stopped now. But yeah, um, they don't always stick with it. These youngsters.
yeah.
um,
Well, I'm trying to find that with myself because my daughter DJs and she's part of the 45 Kids, and we've got a few kids from around the world who do it, and it's going to be interesting to see how long they keep going with it. Hopefully they will. Some of them will, and
yeah,
then obviously some of them will get interested in other things. Um, but
well,
it's
some
yeah,
with
it's great that
that.
you can help them.
Yeah, well, with my son, he wasn't interested at all in my DJing.
Yeah.
He never even bothered trying to have a go at scratching or anything. He just wasn't into it. He used to go to like Japanese karaoke with his mom, like
Okay.
really 1950s music or whatever from Japan. And then just suddenly, before he came over this year, he's 22 now. He emailed me, he messaged me and said, "Oh, Dad, got some news. I am now a rapper in Japan. My favorite rapper. I'm working with the same producer in the studio, and his favorite rapper, Ricky Daddy Dirty, has said yes, he's good enough to release music. So he's basically been accepted by the
Wow.
the right people, and he reckons his music's coming out in April or May.
Wow. That's
Uh,
amazing.
I
That's
know,
amazing.
very quick. Just to sort of, I'm a rapper, and then just,
And then
right,
suddenly,
go in the studio with my favorite producer, just like that.
and is he rapping in Japanese, English, or both?
Mostly Japanese,
Okay.
and a bit of English, yeah, which is
Yeah,
what
yeah,
the Japanese rappers do, just chuck in some words. Um,
yeah, yeah.
but he brought over a proper sort of recording microphone with him to the UK, and
Wow.
he's been working in his flat, um, on his own music, ready to go back.
That
Um,
must be amazing because obviously the fact that obviously he didn't get into DJing or isn't DJing at the moment, but there must have been the fact that you're into music and his mother's into music that sort of led him to this path. If you guys weren't so heavily into music, it may not have gone that way. Do you think so?
yeah, well, he said to me, "I've got your DNA, Dad. I will succeed." um, so yeah,
That's amazing. It must make you immensely proud. Um, and he's been over, hasn't he? And you've done a radio show or two quite recently, haven't you?
yeah,
Together.
yeah. He wanted. I mean, I didn't think he'd want to actually work with me really, because you don't want to work with your dad or whatever. When we were talking about doing Japan,
Yeah.
plan was I was going to do gigs, and he can maybe do the same venue the next night or something.
Right.
Uh, but so that's what we're going to do next year. But yeah, no, I haven't really got many gigs I can have an MC, but I've got this gig in Soho Loose, and I said, look, come along and MC a little bit, and it kind of worked. Helped me, go from disco to hip hop, and he actually got people onto the floor and stuff, like
Wow.
um, using the mic. So we just got a message there, didn't we, from somebody I know?
It's Andre, DJ One of a Kind, I
Oh
think.
yes, I met up with him in Hastings. He lives there now.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, I've met up with him a couple of times since he's been moved over. Yeah, so he's not too much. He's not too far down the coast actually from you now in Margate. But yeah, great to see you, Andre. Um, okay, we'll come back to your son in a moment. But obviously we've discussed obviously your DJing career is going really well. Everything's sort of going well, and obviously we hit a couple of years ago the pandemic. So being a gigging DJ, firstly I'm assuming that was pretty much the end at that point in terms of live gigs. How
Yeah.
how did that sort of affect you? From a sort of mental health perspective.
Um, well, initially, um, I was thought, oh, well, we'll just have a break. But then I was sort of, a bit confused. Have I got COVID, or have I having a bipolar episode or whatever? So I actually checked myself into Canterbury Hospital, which is not an easy
Right.
thing to do. I mean, I'll talk briefly about mental health. Age 16, 17, for no reason whatsoever, I had a nervous breakdown, shall we say,
Right.
um, and ended up in a mental hospital in Middlesbrough, so twice in a 1 year period. But within a couple of years, I got off the medication, and I moved to London, age 21. No connection, totally off medication, and just living a kind of active life. With my mate Simon, we both lived in this nurse's home. We're into chopper bikes, dancing, DJing. So yeah, I was quite manic, I suppose, at times, but that was just how we were.
Yeah.
Um, so for almost 20 years, I was fine. Then a lighting engineer at a commercial gig I was doing for many years decided to give me a good time and spike my drink
Oh no.
at age 38, 39. So it's literally almost 20 years of being okay. And that knocked me into um, bipolar basically, and
God.
ended up in hospital for quite a while, a few weeks. But what it is, I worked as a chef in a rehab unit for brain damaged people, so I was dealing with kind of not mentally ill, but brain damaged. There were similar, crossovers.
Yeah.
So I could deal with violent people or angry people or somebody throwing a chair. It was a day-to-day thing, in the job, and you just dealt with it. So being on a ward with mentally ill people, I could work out, who was dangerous, who wasn't. There was a guy with a very large forehead who had a headbutting disorder. Um, you know, so I was
Right.
in the TV room, and he walked in and said, "Right, we're going to watch the football." I said, "No, we've just discussed we're going to watch Forrest Gump." And the staff's behind him going, "Just let him watch the football." No. I said,
Right.
"No, I'm sorry, we've had a vote here. We're watching Forrest Gump." Um, so he went off into the toilet and headbutted the wall quite violently, which
Oh.
apparently was my fault.
Right.
But no, he would, he threatened to headbutt me, but he didn't. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not always the best place to be when you're not mentally stable. To be surrounded by real mentally ill people, who
Yeah.
don't. A lot of them don't get better, and they can stay there for years or whatever and stuff. It's like a movie. Um, but once you work out, who the good staff are and who you can trust and everything, then it's okay. Um, so yeah, I've kind of every few years I've had a bit of a rocky thing. Sometimes I end up in hospital, sometimes I don't.
Right.
Um, but for me, bipolar is kind of a gift in a way. I don't really get depressed.
Okay.
I kind of rest and sleep a lot and lose my energy. I'm on a medication which takes away your energy for a start anyway, so it
Right.
doesn't get too high. um, so yeah, I see it as a benefit in life. Would I still be doing what I'm doing now, age 55, if I didn't have a condition or whatever? Um,
So you think it sort of added to your musical career? You
exactly.
think
Yeah.
yeah.
It gives you a knowledge of something you don't, without having to write it all down, and
Yeah.
you have all this stuff in your head of music, which just makes you do your job quite easily without having to study.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. Yeah, definitely. Um
You
I
have a 24 hours a day. You don't really switch off. Like people have a normal 9 to 5 or whatever. They really do not
yeah.
think about work from 6 o'clock till the next day.
Yeah.
But I'll answer the phone at midnight if somebody's offering me a gig.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's very true. Actually, especially with the music stuff, there's always something going on, or someone messaging, or and especially in this sort of world that we live in now, where we're talking to people all across the world. The time zones and things just sort of go out the window, don't they? You get messages all sorts of times.
yeah.
Um,
So what
okay.
happened in the pandemic?
Yeah.
I had a meltdown initially, and I sort of got myself into country, which I've been before 3 years previously or whatever, and it
Yeah.
was I highly recommend. It's got table tennis, it's got decent food and nice staff and all that kind of stuff. So if you are going to go into a mental ward, I recommend don't
Canterbury.
go into inner city London. Yeah, you're better off. Even Middlesbrough was okay. But I went there once when my dad was dying, and I got confused there. But yeah, generally the ones outside of London are a lot better. Yeah, and obviously they're not overrun with patients.
Yeah.
But
And how long were you in there at that time? This is obviously the pandemic. How long were you there in
I
Canterbury?
overstayed my welcome. Yeah, they kept asking me to leave. I said no, it's all right. I'll go next week.
Right.
Whereas in the past, I was desperate to get out and get back to work. I was always
Okay.
trying to leave as quick as I could. Sometimes it'd just be a week or whatever. Um,
And was that because the work wasn't there? Because obviously the gigs weren't there. There wasn't anything
yeah,
to go back to.
I wasn't missing anything. Yeah, and I just moved in. I just bought a flat, my own flat, so I wasn't really worried about the rent and stuff. Yeah, so it was
Okay.
just good timing. And then when I came out, it was like it was quite actually nice to not have to go to London every weekend and to have
Right.
a break. Yeah, everyone was doing Twitch and doing Facebook Live, and I'm like, well, I don't really need to DJ. I'm gonna have a break, you know.
Yeah.
But then I started taking a portable deck to the beach and doing the sunset, um, and that kind of worked quite well. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
So that set the deck up facing the sunset on the sea and play a few records. I even climbed over. There's this an outdoor club in Margate, and I
Yeah.
climbed over the the fence and DJ'd in the DJ booth.
Wow.
On Facebook Live. That was that went a bit viral. That one, yeah, that was
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
funny.
That's amazing because yes, you're not. I mean, you're not someone who's on Twitch or any of these other platforms. And that's, I assume, a conscious decision. You've decided that you're going to stick with the sort of live gigs, in real life gigs, rather than sort of doing the stuff online.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to watch other people doing it, and people who weren't DJs to sort of get into doing things and stuff, and
Yeah.
get excited by it. But for me, I just thought, well, I'm on, I'm on holiday,
Yeah.
make the most of it,
And
So yeah, I
and
was selling records on Discogs. That was going great,
yeah.
and selling clothes on eBay. And the government help financially was actually, I thought, was brilliant. You know, because I'd done a tax return,
Yeah.
I qualified for
The
the
grant.
hand.
Yeah.
And then Universal Credit, they were great. They were ringing me, chatting about music because they were working from home. These people in the office, and every time I always got somebody
Right.
who was really nice, and like, yeah, just ignore any job offer. We can see you've been DJing for a long time. Don't accept any supermarket job or anything. Just ignore them. There were
Right.
where other people were like saying, no, you're going to have to get retrain and all this. You can't sit here waiting. But
Yeah.
for some reason, I was really lucky, and everyone who from the Universal Credit was like totally supportive.
Well, that was the message coming out from the government, wasn't it? That and it was quite a difficult message for anyone who's sort of involved in the arts or
Was that
creative
Bally
sides.
Dance or something?
Yeah,
Wasn't
exactly. Well, my wife's a dance teacher,
it? All
as
right.
well, and it was always sort of like a real kick in the teeth, wasn't it? If you're doing arts or anything sort of arty or creative, it was almost like the government was saying you're not worthwhile. You need to go out and get a proper job, as they were. It was interesting, aggressive rhetoric that the government
What
was
they
sort
should have
of
said is
going through.
do what other DJs are doing and
Yeah,
sell some records on Discogs.
yeah,
um, you know, um,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. It was a bit of a strange time, and hopefully that's all like behind us now. But what was it like getting when the gigs came back then? When places started to open up. What was it like at that stage getting these
well, it's
gigs
quite
back
weird
again?
because I was getting new gigs. Not the
Okay,
old ones weren't necessarily coming back. Southland and Soul Train still hasn't gone back to the original venue. Um, but I was getting some new gigs and some quite high paid posh places who previously didn't have vinyl DJs but
right. Okay.
wanted vinyl DJs.
What
Since
would
the
you
pandemic.
put that down to? Would you put that down to sort of vinyl somehow becoming cool again, or were they just jumping on the bandwagon? What do you think it
Well,
was?
because obviously they'd witnessed all these DJs or wannabe DJs in lockdown all playing vinyl, and they realised there was a big interest in it more than ever, and
Yeah,
therefore it made sense. I miss the Bussy Building, Chris Wheatley. Yeah, he came down there to see me and Andy one night, yeah, once or
yeah,
twice. And I saw him at Southport Weekender as well. He's a
yeah.
very funny guy. So is he near you? Is Bournemouth near you?
It's a couple of hours along the coast. Yeah, I know. I haven't met Chris in person yet, but he's been on one of my shows, and he does quite a lot of the live streams. But yeah, it's a couple of hours down the coast. We're going to hopefully meet up later this year and do something together. But yeah, so okay, so that's interesting. So these sort of posh venues had seen people with playing vinyl online, and then thought, yeah, we need to do that in real life, and
Yeah.
it's
But
okay.
then some of them, you turn up with your vinyl and they say, "Oh, can you play this? Can you play that?" I'm like, well, no, that's not a vinyl, and I
Yeah,
don't want to play it. Oh, well, So some of them suddenly they put the vinyl decks away and pulled out the CDJs,
right.
and they said, "Right, download." They'd actually send me some tracks to play. I was like,
Okay.
"Oh, for God's sake, I thought you wanted me, not a playlist." But it was a high paid gig and it was straight out of lockdown. Um,
Yeah. And I guess you've talked about sort of taking USB sticks and stuff. So I guess vinyl's the main thing, but you're not a complete purist. You will play CDJs and
No, I have a few
digital.
gigs, not many, but I have a few gigs where it's yeah. I mean, I used to play CDs in
Yeah,
some of my commercial gigs, and so I knew how to learn how to do that. And then the USB seemed a natural progression, and
yeah.
it is. I mean, it is the most amazing, convenient way to DJ, and
It,
look, I don't
it's
actually
it,
have a
it's
computer anymore. Um,
okay.
I had a white MacBook Pro, white MacBook, in 10 years ago or whatever, and then suddenly I thought, why do I need a computer? I can do everything on my phone, apart
Yeah,
from load a USB stick.
yeah,
um,
yeah. It's very
but
true.
not
Uh,
naming, but basically, a lot of my DJ friends just do my sticks for me,
yeah,
um, and yeah, that's been amazing to get sticks from some well-known DJs who are super organised
yeah,
and um, and end up doing USB sets. But yeah, I've got the hang of it, and I quite enjoy it. And obviously, when you 45s, you're limited to what you've got
yeah.
and what you want to play. Whereas USB, you might have 5 different mixes of the same song, and it's quite exciting, to put on a stick and
Well, I was
play
going to
play.
say because we talked a lot about how vinyl DJing there's there's limits in terms of what you can do with it. Do you find that you DJ in a completely different way with digital?
Yeah, um, yeah, I do look at the BPM, and I have
Yeah,
used I've used the sync button on occasion.
yeah.
Uh,
There's nothing wrong with
Once or
that.
twice to in the wrong way. So you probably never tried it, but if you're playing house and disco and it's all similar BPM, happy days.
Yeah,
It syncs it all up for you. But if
yeah,
you suddenly try and put something else on,
yeah,
a
yeah,
different style of music, but forget to turn the sync button off. So I played Tainted Love. Luckily, there's a button called Master Tempo which keeps the vocals normal. But
yeah.
the record was like million miles an hour, Tainted Love, and the vocals was normal. But and this was in Ibiza. So I went from Ain't No Mountain High Enough. That was fine, but I forgot the sync button was on. So Tainted Love came on just stupid, and
Right.
I just blamed it on faulty equipment for
Okay.
the rest of the holiday. The sun was. I said, "Oh, sorry, the decks are overheating. Sent Tainted Love into overdrive."
That's a great excuse. That's a great one. Okay, we've talked about mental health, and obviously you've discussed your mental health, but you've also got involved with raising money for mental health charities. How important is that to be able to sort of be able to give back and help out charities like that?
Well, I haven't touched on it as much as I want because I really should get involved in going to some groups or what and helping other people, struggling and all that.
Yeah,
Is what an area I do want to get into, and I need to talk to Tonic about that. I mean, Eddie Pillar is my boss from Totally Wide Radio and Acid Jazz, very good friend of mine. He's involved as one of their what do you call it? Like Terry Hall from the Specials was
like a patron or an
yeah.
ambassador or something. Yeah,
Um, so obviously I'd like to get more involved and know where I have looked into where the money is going, and it is spent on the right thing and groups and stuff and
yeah.
so you do wonder sometimes with charity money, where is it actually being spent?
That's right. Yeah. It's
Um,
difficult, isn't it? Because they've only got to give a certain percentage to the actual charity to be able to be registered as charities. And like you say, it's important to know exactly what is happening to that money.
yeah, I mean, I did look into starting my own charity. I had this name, Care Bear, as in
Okay.
Care Bear Bipolar, and the Run
Yeah.
DMC. Some of you haven't touched on yet is I got obsessed by Run DMC memorabilia and collecting it. This
Right.
was about 2002, and I kind of had the biggest collection in the world, as you do when you're obsessed by something.
Yeah.
Buy it on eBay. So I approached Adidas and did an exhibition of Run DMC memorabilia, and I
Right.
had painters do some art and various other things. It was in a small store in Carnaby. It was there for like 4 months, and they took a percentage. It was an exhibition and a sale,
Yeah.
So for a few years, I had a night called Hip Pop for the Run DMC logo. So we'd play like Beastie Boys, Run DMC, as well as deep funk and proper b-boy stuff. I had breakdancers and an MC and a beatboxer who went on to become a pop star called Frank Music, who was called Mr. Mouth at the time. But
Okay.
he was actually quite big as a pop star when he was young. But yeah, he started out as my beatboxer and stuff. So what it is, I'm not famous DJ, but I've dabbled in so many areas.
Yeah.
If you become famous, like you Carl Cox, you kind of get stuck in a rut, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. And I
So
guess it's the same gigs and the same sort of not quite the same music, but obviously you're known for a particular style of
yeah,
or type of venue and all the rest of it.
yeah,
So I
I didn't,
guess yeah,
and I get bored of one thing. So
yeah,
I mean, I was kind of playing a Balearic vibe, and even Happy Mondays and that in Southport Weekenders. So I was introducing different music to the Southport Week and the crowd as well as the house. But yeah, I just always just move on and do something else. So 10 years of Hawaiian Bop has been quite a long run for me. And the first,
yeah.
you know, first 5 years was like quite big nights with bands and stuff, and everyone turning up in the shirts. It was really exciting, but it's kind of run its course a bit now. I mean, I celebrated 10 years, but yeah, it's not really on the same level it was. I don't know.
I guess the excitement after that amount of time just sort of wanes, but also like you say, it's wanting to move on to something else and try and
Yeah,
do something else, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, a lot of my gigs now I play 50s to 90s or whatever, all on 45, and I cut
Yeah.
dub plates. One side might be Northern Soul, Gladys Knight, and the other side might be Hey Ya, Outcast. I really mix them up. I don't. Um, so yeah, doing the dub plates is kind of a little secret thing.
Yeah.
45 DJ things, which in a way defeats the object of only playing 45s. If you can put, I mean, what's your opinion on them yourself?
We have this conversation because some and I think we had Mixter Hoffman in the chat, and he does a lot of carving of 45s over in Germany, and he was playing one, and I was like, is this on 45? And then I sort of have a quick look on Discogs, and it's not. It's like, oh no, you caught me out. And Sam Tweaks does a lot of 45s as well. I don't personally, just because for me there's so many records out there anyway. I personally don't feel the need for me, but I can see it's that moment when if you're at a 45s night, someone looks up and it's like, oh, well, this isn't on 40. It's that moment. So I don't know. It's
Yeah, I think it's just great to
yeah,
have
it's
the only
whatever you want to do, really.
time. I've got to have it on 45. It's exciting.
Yeah. Mixer Hoffman is saying that Sam Tweaks put him onto it. And Andre's got an opinion. I think I know what Andre's opinion is. But there's space for everything, isn't there? And like you say, you're not just playing vinyl. You're playing USB. You're playing CDs. It's
No,
if you,
my vinyl sets are vinyl only generally. Yeah.
yeah.
Um,
But I mean, for example, in a typical vinyl set, how many dub plates are you going to drop? In say an hour or 2 hour set. I assume it's not the whole thing. I assume it's just the odd ones here and there.
yeah. I've only got about 30 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's just handy if you can't buy something on 7 to just get it cut. Um,
yeah.
or if it's really expensive as well, obviously it solves that problem.
Well, yeah. That's the other thing.
But
Records
now,
are
I
getting
mean,
more expensive. Yeah,
10 years ago, playing 45s was like there wasn't so much music on 45. You were limited to what you could
yeah.
play. And now there's a hip hop 45 coming out every week now, and you think, oh, I better buy that one, I suppose. Uh,
What's your view on that? Because obviously we have this conversation about you've got a record already on 12, and then it suddenly comes out on 45. Are you someone who would still buy it to have it on 45,
of
or
course, yeah.
if yeah, okay, because
I mean, I've tried because I don't know if you've got the big 300 bag, the Magma 300.
I've seen it. I haven't personally got it.
You
I've
put,
got lots of
you
other
put,
bags, but yeah,
put
I've
like
seen.
5 12 inches at the bottom of the bag.
Okay.
So kind of, if there's one or two you haven't got on 7, you can carry them conveniently. But
Yeah.
when you're only carrying 45s, it becomes a task to try and carry a 12-inch. It's weird. Um,
That's that's an interesting one actually. I'll have to mention that because Mr. Lob, who's the fan of the 45 Kings, he did a review on it, but I'll mention that to him actually. So that's underneath the insert that comes in. Is that where you put your
yeah,
12s? Yeah,
underneath you can put them on the top, but
yeah,
Andy
okay,
Smith's the safer at the bottom for some reason.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, sometimes I do take a bag of 12s with me. It depends on the gig. But yeah, if I'm doing strictly 45, obviously I'm doing strictly 45s, and that would include some carvers. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. That's really cool.
but
You know
how,
what is? Sorry, go on.
it's people have their own rules. Some only want to play original vinyl, original release and all that. If it sounds good enough, that'll do me.
Well,
Um,
that was going to be my next question because we've had guests on who play just original vinyl events, and obviously the organisers of those events get quite militant about the fact that it has to be original. But it sounds like from you, it's not something that you sort of stick by. At the end of the day, if it's original, it's original. If it's not, if it's a repress,
well,
that's still
I can understand it in the Northern Soul world,
yeah,
where they obsessively buying these records, and if somebody turns up and plays, a compilation album or even a bootleg, yeah, I can understand being frowned on.
yeah,
But if you're playing a party set in a bar, um, it doesn't matter if it came out last week at Juno, some
yeah.
hip hop 45. The main thing is, as long as the sound quality is okay, and you can, you've normally got a bit of freedom on the mixer to give it,
Yeah.
sound okay.
And I
Uh,
guess most of the people at those bar gigs don't really care what format or what you're playing anyway. They're just there for the music. If even that, a lot of these bar gigs they're not even really there for the music at all. They're just sort of there, aren't they?
well, I've got some good bar gigs. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Where it's strictly vinyl and people filming you, watching you, and
yeah,
hearing and all that. It can, like a mini nightclub. There's different levels of bar gigs, obviously. Yeah. But I enjoy it. I do posh bars for decent money, um, where people don't really care about the music, but then you think they're not caring, then they'll come over and say, "Oh, I love this. What is it, or whatever," and you know,
wow,
show a bit of interest. And yeah, obviously, when people are dancing and not dancing, there's a big difference.
yeah,
If you're not there to make people dance, you've got more freedom
yeah.
of music, and it could be more eclectic and
Which is where I think for us who are on the Twitch streamers, it's one of the things that works for us because you're not trying to entertain a dance floor. Yes, you got people in the chat, but it does give you that freedom to play pretty much whatever you want. Whenever you want. It's a lot of fun.
I mean,
But
tell me about I mean, the Twitch at its peak was massive, I guess, in mid COVID, was it?
um, yeah, it's difficult to say actually because it was at its peak when there was sort of a few streamers. There was still quite a lot of streamers, but there was a few streamers and those viewers were there. And obviously, as time has gone on, a few streamers have left. Lots more streamers have come on, but the sort of it seems to be lots of viewers still coming on. There seems to be enough viewers for every little niche that you do. And so you've got your big DJs, for example, Jazzy Jeff was on last night, and he was doing a 45s event, and he'd had like 1,000 people watching throughout. And then you have other things where you've got Scratch Bastards he's doing about 1,000. You've got the Gaff in Canada's doing about 400 people. Sam Tweaks in Wales. It still seems to be getting bigger and bigger. It's just a case of where it goes now, and what people do with it. I'm seeing as DJs, we've only been doing it for like the last 2.5 years. Obviously, gamers have been on there, talk show hosts, and all the rest of it. So it's interesting to see the combination between
Well,
what is
now the
effectively.
radios are struggling.
Well, I think that may be why. I think
You
that's
know,
probably why.
Worldwide, John Peterson and
Yeah,
Tony Radio are both gone now, hopefully
yeah.
temporarily. But I guess that opens it up for other ways to listen to music. Yeah,
It's yeah. I mean, obviously, I think I can't remember if it was you or someone else was saying, but it was the FM licenses were substantially increased, weren't they? I
it's not even
think.
FM; it's just
Just
internet radio license. Yeah,
right. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize it was internet radio as well.
£800 to 12,000 or something stupid.
Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? And unfortunately, well, fortunately for us, but unfortunately for them, people can now broadcast on Twitch effectively for free. There's nothing at the moment, until they change any of the copyright issues or anything that they're doing. You can do and play what you want on here practically for free. But it's an interesting one. Twitch is a really interesting. We talk about it a lot. It's the community and the chat, and the collaboration, and so I'm DJing something. At the end of this show, we will go and raid someone. We will take whoever's watching this and go to another channel, and then at the end of that set, they'll go to another channel, and it just never stops. It's 24/7, just never stops. 365 days a week. And there's always something, and it's becoming, for a lot of people, their background. Like they would listen to the radio, you've just got Twitch on, and it happens to be people that you've DJed with, or friends of yours, or people through the community and all the rest of it. So I think it's still growing. And Chris is saying this as well. I'm not sure it's peaked yet, because there's still so much creativity on it.
That's exactly what Chris said. I'm
Yeah.
not sure it's peaked yet.
Yeah. And he's saying, creativity, collaboration, engagement, and lots of fun. It is fun, that's the thing, it's yeah, it's a good one. I mean, I don't know, maybe Andy Smith can get you on at some point if you're interested. I'm sure you can go and hang out with him at some point and play. But it might not be for you. Like you say, you've got enough gigs in real life. Maybe you don't need to sort of be online as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I chose not to actively get involved in Twitch, really. But I guess it was just I was the same as the Facebook Live thing. I was like, well,
you need a lot. If you and obviously you're saying you haven't got a computer. You've got to. Yeah, it's not unfortunate. You've got cameras, you've got lights, you've got computer, you've got microphone. It's a lot to get started, and it takes a lot of time, and you've got to put a lot of effort into it. So, if you don't have that time, first of all, it's very difficult to sort of do it. But I think the odd guest show. If you could get around to Andy's or someone else or one of your other friends who DJs, the odd guest set might be fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
See what happens.
So what would you include the mental health into this whole thing?
Yeah.
It's obviously not every guest you have on the show talks about mental health, do they? Or?
So I've got a few different shows. So this particular show, part of my journey, was the first talk show that I did, and that was inspired by Double P, who's in the chat, and he's one of my moderators. He only started DJing a few years ago, and was about to do his first live gigs out, but obviously the pandemic hit and got into DJing online. And he just sent me a message one day. Because we'd encouraged him to do some online streaming, and he sent me a message from his son saying, "Thank you for helping my dad with depression." And that really hit me. And then I said to him, "Do you want to talk about it?" So then he started talking about it. And so the guests on this show, it's been amazing how we've got from talking about records and nerding out about records to then becoming friends, to then talking about much bigger issues. Obviously, and as men, historically, we don't normally talk about our issues. So it's been amazing to find this community of people who've been open and honest enough to want to talk about these things, and it's helped. It's helped other people. Other people have said, "Oh, I watched that show, and this helped me with X, and this helped me with Y." So, and for me, it was moving away from just DJing. Because I love DJing, and there's lots of DJs, but I just saw that there was discussions we could have that would potentially help other people in the community, and that's how we started this. But yeah, I mean, this is episode 28. I've got a couple of other talk shows that I do as well, but this particular one, we always talk about mental health, and it's gone really well so far. I think everyone's come on, been open, honest, talked about important issues, and it's been a help, I think.
I do want to write a book at some point. Because I've got a lot of stories.
Yeah, definitely.
Connected to mental health, which would be a good read. So it's something I plan to do in the future.
Yeah, you should definitely do it. I mean, one of the questions I was going to say is, you've been doing this 35, 40 years now, something like that. Can you see yourself ever stopping?
No, I don't really understand when DJs say they're going to retire because I don't know anyone who's successfully retired. Really,
That's very
they all
true.
come back. It's not
Yeah,
like you know, it's not like you're going to go back to the office and put your stuff back on the desk. It's a passion and it's a paid hobby, and
yeah,
Bob Jones is 73 now and he's still DJing. He's had loads of health issues, but he won't stop.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, DJ Derek made it to 83, was it? I think he was about 83, wasn't he? I think
who was that?
DJ Derek from
Oh yeah,
Bristol
yeah,
before he sadly died. But I think he was still playing right up until the end. And I guess if you can stand up and put a needle on a record, then
yeah.
well, or you can sit down. That's the beauty of it in a way. As long as you can still hear what's going on. You haven't lost your hearing. That's that.
I
So
doing
yeah,
that.
another 20 or 30 years.
I've actually got hearing aids, but I've never used them ever. I'm
Okay.
officially deaf, but not deaf enough to wear them ever. But they told me to get them before I was 50 because they give me these smaller ones
Right.
at the age of 50,
Yeah.
and I've never used. I tried them on the underground, and I could hear like the next carriage, and
Wow.
I put them away and thought, well, when am I going to wear these? But Bob Jones, he wears hearing aids all the time. Yeah, I guess
Okay.
there's different levels of hearing problems, but Andy Smith's pretty deaf as well. I have a lot of DJs who we talk really loud to each other all the time because we're all a bit deaf.
And do you think that's all through being in loud clubs for most of your lives? Do you think
Um,
that's probably what it is?
I got perforated eardrum very young age,
Right.
age 16, 17. Actually, they tried to connect the perforated eardrum to the whatever it's called at the time. The nervous breakdown. They were saying there was a connection between your hearing and I
Right.
think it's just nonsense. But so I had damage to one of my ears, and before the music kicked in properly, um, I had an operation. I had to take 3 months off DJing Ministry of Sound and stuff. When I had this operation, but they just sort of went in and came back out again. I don't know what they did, but so yeah, I've had ongoing problems, but I can still hear. I still use my good ear on the headphones. Yeah. Um, what do you think about DJs who wear headphones on both ears?
Uh,
Isn't
I,
it a
I,
risk?
I'm one of them because only because I DJ in my headphones in here because I don't have although there's speakers I don't really have them on. It's just something I've got used to. I've just got used to sort of DJing in my headphones. And we had Mojax on a little while ago, and he was saying that he's trying to learn sort of in ear monitoring and DJing with headphones on just because of the circumstances he's in. But yeah, I mean, I think people just DJ. You've got obviously quite a lot of the house DJs just use like the lollipop headphones, don't they? Which is just like one ear. But what do you do? Are you one ear on, one ear off?
I always think you've got to hear the music you're playing as well, because if that
Yeah,
music stops, and
yeah,
if you're listening on both ears to the other, you don't know it stopped. you
yeah,
know, if something
yeah,
happens, so you should always be paying attention to what's being played at
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the same time. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
We've got
I've had Technics. The tech I can't remember the number, but they have a twisty side, and it just fits really nice
yeah,
with your, pushing it up.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you wear big hats and that, as you can't really wear over the top. Giles
yeah.
Peterson, he's used the same headphones for a long time as well. You just get used to the same headphone, don't you?
Yeah, and it's how you get used to DJ and all the rest of it. We've got an interesting comment from Andre actually. He said his girlfriend had a stressful episode. She became deaf in one ear overnight, and so there is a definite link. Because that's what you were talking about, the perforated eardrum, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Potentially. So yeah, there's lots of interesting links. But yeah. Okay, we're getting towards the end of the show. And one of the things we always do
Oh, you better
is
check. What haven't you covered yet?
Pardon?
Have we done 1 hour already? Wow,
We
God.
we have done one out, yeah. That's fine. Time flies on these shows. But on the very first episode, Mark Lancaster asked a question in the chat, and he said, what 45s lift the spirits? And so ever since then, I've asked my guests to pick out 3 45s that lift their spirits, and it's also led on to I've got a mix project where I invite DJs to do 45 minutes of 45s that lift the spirits, so an uplifting mix. I know you haven't got them with you because you're at a friend's at the moment, but can you give us 3 45s that lift your spirits?
Never Too Much Luther Vandross. I've liked that since it came out. I
Yeah.
used to dance around the kitchen at my parents. And that was my first. I've got song tattoos. So that was my first song tattoo, Never Too Much.
Wow.
And so my two funeral songs are Going In, Everybody Loves the Sunshine, Roy Ayers,
Yeah.
and Going Out, Never Too Much. Um, and then the third one would probably be Teddy Pendergrass, The More I Get, The More I Want. I just think, I don't know, as a DJ, I don't struggle getting bored of the same songs. I just think if you like a song, you're going to like it forever.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
it's
songs can
very
become overplayed and too big, and like Happy Pharrell, great record, but obviously you just stop playing it because it was, it's reached its moment.
it was just
Um,
everywhere, wasn't it? There was just that period where it was just everywhere, and I remember going to a night locally where the DJ played it like 3 times in the space of 4 hours, and I was just like, why? Okay, once maybe, but 3 times, you know.
but
But we were talking about this last night actually on a different show. There's this weird thing about Twitch where people sometimes think they've got to keep getting records and keep getting new records and playing new records to people. But really, no one's really listening or paying attention in that kind to think, oh, well, he played that record 6 months ago on Twitch. We played that record last week on Twitch. It's an interesting one. But I think, once you've got a record that's good, you just got to play it out, haven't you? Constantly, as much as you can, and try and spread that record to as many people as you can.
yeah, and DJs can be as influential as the radio in that, if someone's playing a certain record, you get known for that record sometimes, and you're part of the process of that becoming a big tune.
Yeah, definitely. We definitely find that certainly during the peak of the pandemic when we were all sort of locked up. I think people would play a 45 and then there'd be a mad rush to sort of, oh, I didn't realize this was on 45, and all the 45 was going straight onto Discogs to buy. They did it a lot on Dusty Donut's show that Mark Hype hosts. He
Yeah,
would play, one of the guests would play a record, and then there'd be a Discogs rush where everyone would sort of go off and
got to
try and
buy.
try and
Right,
buy it. Yeah, yeah. And Jim Sharp, he came on my show and he was saying that he would always check which records the guest was going to play to make sure he grabbed them while they were still cheap on Discogs before they played them, because suddenly they would just disappear. I think Z Trip played something that was really cheap to start with, and then he played it and everyone was like, wow, and then it just went it went crazy. But yeah, it's been great. But yeah, I'm going to find someone that we can raid to. I think we're going to go into one of the raid events that I'm on later on to this evening. But do you want to tell people where they can catch you in the next sort of few weeks? And you've also got, we haven't quite touched on it, but you're also doing the Japanese tour. It was meant to be this year, but it's now next year, isn't it? But that again is in aid of sort of mental health, isn't it?
well, it's the first time I've tried to connect some kind of fundraising to connected to a Japan tour.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'll see how that goes, and I want to speak to Tonic Tower. I was thinking, I had this idea of climbing Mount Fuji and DJing on the top of it.
Oh
Um,
wow.
just take,
With your portable
yeah,
deck. Yeah, yeah.
play some music on top of the mountain because they've actually got like a youth hostel on the top there, so
Oh wow.
you can stay once you get to the top. I need to actually go at the right time. Apparently, you can't just climb the mountain any time of year. So, but yes, I'm always trying to think of something, you know, clever, interesting to do, and,
Well,
and
it
keep the
keeps it
excitement
keeps
there.
it interesting for you, doesn't it? And also keeps it interesting for the people who are coming to the event as well. Because if you've taken time to come up with a concept or a theme or something, they're like, oh, okay, this is a bit more interesting than just people just turning up and playing whatever.
Yeah, But then you sometimes have the argument of last week I was here and the DJ played Beyonce. I said, yes, that wasn't me, and that wasn't my night. You know,
Yeah.
that panics the club owners sometimes, the bar owners. You know, when they realise it's not consistent every week, the same thing, and they actually probably need that. So yeah, I had that one. You know,
Well, I guess the only way to do that is to have the same DJ pretty much each week, or the same type of DJ in each week.
Yeah, the thing
But then,
about the night I was doing, I was there for like a year or two, once a
yeah,
month, and it was great. And but yeah, there'd be some people who wanted what they heard the week before, and they complain or whatever. And you know, yeah, you can see the dilemma, I suppose, for the club owners that you know, shall we just be consistent? You know, Beyonce Latino remixes every week, or not?
play it safe, because obviously it's money. They've got to get the people in, spending the money, I suppose. And sometimes playing it safe is the easiest way to do it. But it's yeah, it's difficult. I wouldn't want to be a club or a bar owner, because just making those sort of decisions could make a huge impact on whether you're a success or not. And it's a difficult one.
I think
But
we've
yeah,
touched on most of the things you wanted to talk about.
yeah,
I've explained that I've done house, I've done hip hop, and my
yeah,
cover version thing that kind of ran 5 years. The version excursion, so I had the record label and
yeah,
party.
yeah.
I'd invite various DJs, Ashley Beadle or whatever, to do, and they obviously had to dig quite deep into the collection to do a strictly covers only set. I did Japan tour that as well. So yeah, I just keep
Just keep
keep
plugging
going,
away. Yeah,
and yeah, don't know, take the easy route,
yeah. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Lots of insightful stories and some interesting stuff there, and certainly the mental health side of things. It's great to sort of find out more about that from a personal level. And thank you for being open and honest about your experiences. Yeah, it's
Worry,
been
back in the day, I didn't want to talk about it, and just
yeah,
get on with life. I've realised now, obviously, it's a different world now, and the problem is now, I'm a DJ, I've got bipolar. I'm like, oh.
it's good that we're talking about it though. That's the main thing, I think. And like you say, in the old days, we might not have talked about it, but it's been fantastic. If anyone wants to watch it back, it will be back on YouTube probably tomorrow, and then also on Mixcloud. And we're now going to raid out to another DJ. And thank you so much, Richio, and have a good rest of your evening.
Bye. Thanks for having me. Take care.
No problem. Take care.
Bye. Leave.
Right. That was great. Oh.